This is the Free Heel Life Podcast, episode number 138. I'm your host, Josh Madsen, coming at you from the Free Heel Life shop in Salt Lake City, Utah. And it's my favorite time of week again. It's time to be here with you, my brothers and sisters of the turn. Happy to be back. Always nice to get through a refreshing weekend and get back on the horn to talk about the greatest turn on snow, the Telemark turn. So, I've got a great podcast today, but before I get into that, we're going to do some newsroom and notes. In last week's episode, I asked people what color boots they like, and the people have spoken, and they have emailed me at podcast@freeheellife.com, and they have given me some insights into how they would like their feet to look on the great white slopes of the world. So, if you didn't catch last week's podcast, old Telly Tay and I were getting down on talking about all sorts of stuff in our mailbag episode number 8. And we got talking about boots, as we often do. And I asked everybody to email me and let me know what's up. So here, the first one was from Coleman. He said, Candy Cane TX comps, take my money. I would agree with that. And we talked a little bit about that on the podcast. Julian says Candy Cane White or Defender Gray. And Defender Gray kind of, every once in a while you'll see these. There is an old Scarpa F1 that was made for the military. And it's kind of this just gray boot, which is pretty dope. So that was kind of a fun one. Next, Mark said Dayglow orange or green. And then I've got Tom saying all matte black and gray. Second choice was black with red accents. 3, black with green accents. So if anybody knows me, I love black. Black on black on black. So I'm all about it. I like the idea of the matte black and gray. That's a great idea. So I'll put another vote in for that. And then last up, Aaron says he wants some orange boots. I think it's safe to say that it would just be nice to have a bunch of different colored boots. So we can all dream, can't we? That was fun. I appreciate you guys sending a quick message in, letting me know what you're thinking about. And thanks for checking out that episode. Always good to know you're listening. So as far as news goes with the shop, big news here is we got some rad new merchandise. Some awesome tees. We got a Free Heel, Free Mind shirt. We've got some oldies, some Northbound, some Jacks back in stock. Those are some becoming classics, if you will. Been around for a while. Done a couple reruns of those. And there's some more Guru Loos. And there's a lot of good tees. So we would love for you to support us with that. And along with that, we've got the Protector pre-order going on. Batch number 2 still open. And you can find that on the website. Protectors are our skis made here in Salt Lake City by us. We didn't farm this thing out. We literally built a little ski factory at Free Heel Life. And we're getting after it, making skis. And doing our best to make our own stuff, manufacture things. And then use our ability to get that out to you all over the place. So I will say, this summer we've tried to keep a staff on so we can do better preparation for the upcoming season. And as all of you probably know that have run small businesses out there, or you just know what it's like. So We're investing in the business to be here so we can be better for you when the snow flies in the northern hemisphere. And all of these things help. Buying a t-shirt, pre-ordering your skis, whatever it may be. It all goes a very long way in supporting our Free Heel Life family and keeping it going. So please consider getting on the website and checking some stuff out. We appreciate it. Last note on that is if you follow us on social media or are on the mailing list, we've talked about Closeout Scott boots. you can still get some awesome deals on Scott boots. Hit us up direct. We've got the hookup. You can't find this anywhere else. So we've got the direct line to some good deals and want to help you out. So be sure to check that out. You can email the team at customerservice@freehilllife.com and we will hook it up. So that's all I got for the newsroom and notes on the business side of the house. But today, my guest is originally from York Beach, Maine, where he learned to alpine ski at places like Sunday River. And once high school was over, he decided to pursue a degree at the University of Maine and also participate in a ski industry certificate program. It was during this time he developed an interest in the education side of skiing, which later led him to move to Alta, Utah and get a job as an instructor around 1990. As he began to get involved with telemark skiing in Utah, he helped organize events with the organization Wasatch Telemark. And in the early 2000s, he became involved with helping support and create the USTSA Freeskiing series with Jeff Wright and many others. He served as the president of USTSA, United States Telemark Ski Association, for almost a decade as well. He currently lives in Salt Lake City, where he skis nearly 100 days per year still. Please welcome today's guest, Christopher Ulm. All right, Christopher, welcome to the Free Hill Life podcast. How's it going?
Hey, how you doing, Josh?
I'm doing well, thank you. Yeah, man, good to finally catch up. You've been on this this long hidden list that I have of people that I wanted to get on this thing and just kind of catch up. And but yeah,
it's almost our only chance to get together and chat. You're so busy, but yeah, I'm glad we can connect.
No, for sure. And I was thinking before we hopped on, you actually might be. I'm trying to think how many. Well, I want to get into kind of that, or I guess we'll get into it, but I thought you were part of the Wasatch Telemark stuff, right?
I was part of the Wasatch Telemark.
Okay.
I wanted with Jeff Wright and a bunch of guys.
I wanted to verify that because that's definitely somewhere I want to get to, because obviously being from Utah, I'm super interested in that, and I believe you're the first person I've had sort of from that era, so I'm excited to sort of chat it up about that. But I wanted to start off like I always like to kind of go back and find out where people are from. And where did you grow up? Are you from Utah originally?
I'm from the coast of Maine, on the border of New Hampshire on the coast. I grew up in a town called York Beach, and it was kind of like a summer town, tourist town, dead in the winter. And that's kind of how I got into skiing, and there was really nothing else to do in the winter back then. So, a church group at the time, I wasn't a big church goer, but, there were some cute girls, my best friend, and they were going on a ski trip. And so that's kind of how I got into skiing the first time. And of course, back then it was alpine at first. I didn't start tele skiing until I got out to Utah. Back east at that point, nobody knew what tele skiing was,
Yeah, where were you? Like Sunday River, or what was I guess you're close to New Hampshire too.
It was Sunday River. Like when I was in high school, I started skiing when I was 16, and so I would get a season pass to Sunday River, which was like probably $200 at the time, but seemed like a lot,
That sounds awesome right now.
I know, just my parking pass, it's like $800, but that's a whole nother podcast. But, yeah, and so I started going up weekends, as soon as I got my license, I would drive like 2.5 hours each way, each time, get up to Sunday River. And then it was like a college fair where, you went and interviewed colleges, or they interviewed you in the gymnasium. And I found out the University of Maine had like a ski program. And so I appeased my parents by telling them I was getting the business economics degree. And then they had a ski program. We were right next to Sugarloaf. And we had a very militant type coach, which was perfect for me at that point because I'm like 17 years old, needed some kind of discipline. And, we were racing, we were teaching, and that's where I really got into the educational part of skiing. And that's eventually what brought me out to Alta, or Utah for that instance.
So they had the ski program was sort of ancillary to the business degree. So you were doing a business degree and then sort of had the ski program as a
yeah, they called it a certificate in the ski industry. And like I had some friends that went and worked for like K2 skis, Vocal skis, or I have some friends that went on to be like coaches on the US ski team level. Or I kind of looked at the whole situation. I was like, I don't want to be in a van all the time. I really want to ski. And all my friends that are coaches are on the side of the trail with their walkie-talkie saying, next time a little more outside edge pressure. So I was like, I think I want to be a ski guide. And that's what kind of brought me to Alta. And my senior year of that college program, I did an internship at Alta. And then I probably never looked back at that point,
Oh, so, okay. Was it a summer internship or?
No, it was a winter one. I came out at Christmas time, and it was on ski school there. And then so I went the educational route, and I figured if I got clients to a good enough level, I would just be skiing all the time at Alta. And so I started there about 1990.
Okay. Who was the ski school director back then? Do you remember?
First, Paul Jones. And so he later went up to Washington. He was a big D team member for the Alpine ski team for Professional Ski Instructors of America. And, he was kind of a controversial guy at that point, but I was thankful that he hired me, and I always got along with PJ really well. But at that point, a lot of the old timers at Alta were like, who are these guys from Maine coming in, and all like, didn't want us taking business from them. Like it's an old boys club up there, or was at that point, whether you were going on patrol or, ski school. And so like, I remember coming in on the board, it would say 2 Mainey people. I'm like, I wonder who that's directed at.
I was gonna say they were jealous that you actually knew how to use your edges, probably, because anybody who grew up out here, I always look at the East Coast skiers and I'm like, you guys are all so damn good because you actually skied on hard snow, and pack powder days were like our hard pack days, basically. So the
Wasatch really taught me how to ski, but learning back east, you weren't afraid to ski a little ice, where my friends that grew up here were like, oh my God, it's way too hard today. I'm like, yeah, perfect day for GS turns.
Yeah, totally. No, it really is a different skill set. I think coming from the East, it's like you get my experience with skiing with East Coast skiers is you guys just have a really good handle on technique usually. I know I'm generalizing, but yeah, it's just like the wide variety of conditions. Like some of those things you just don't get out here, but here you get the terrain. Like you said, you probably, got out to Alta and there was a whole nother world open to you from a terrain perspective.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I'm so thankful that I did come to Little Cottonwood Canyon. You can't go wrong anywhere in that canyon. Even with the perceived drought that we've got going on, or whatever's happening, it's still great skiing up there, no matter how you look at it. And I figure it's our little part of Europe right here in the Wasatch,
Yeah, no, for sure. Well, so you come out in 1990, and then did you go back and finish your senior year and then move out directly after? How did that all play out?
I went back and did like some summer classes so that I could come out the next winter again. And then I came out the second winter, went back, graduated, and then just started working full time at Alta and doing I worked in a bicycle shop in New Hampshire in the summer, for about 8 years after that, till I finally moved to Utah full time. But it's tough doing seasonal work, and unless you really get a good gig going on. But there's always that in the middle space between the seasons of stuff that always would suck your money dry,
Yeah, no, there's kind of a shelf life for most people, like when you can do that for so long, and then it can get tricky after a while, man. I mean, that's not an easy gig, unless you want to run rivers in the summer, or like you said, bike shop, or some sort of summer component,
it's really just not easy to do what you love. And, like for me, that was skiing and teaching skiing, and like, they don't pay ski instructors that well. So you're really doing it just for the love of the sport and being outside. But, I'm thankful. I'm 53 now, and people are always like, oh, you look young for your age. And I'm like, well, I think it's because I lived outside most of my life, and I did what I wanted, and I kept the stress down. Even though I wasn't rich, I was rich in experience, I think as we get older, those are the things I'm going to remember, and you don't want to tell tales from the rocking chair or something on the porch. So,
yeah, you want to tell tales of Alta Pow days instead, I'm sure. So
yeah. I feel like I kind of retired first, and like now I'm doing the working life, but nothing wrong with that. My job now still lets me ski 100 days a year. So,
do you want to disclose to the now everybody's going to be like, dude, what job does that guy have?
Yeah. Well, somewhere in the middle there, I got into web design because, I needed a non-physical way to make money, being a professional athlete. I wasn't in movies and stuff, but like sports was my life, so I started getting into the web design right at the beginning of that, again, just in case I got hurt or something, skiing, or, I was also into downhill mountain biking. I've always kind of been into the speed sports is what it kind of boiled down to. And so now the computer stuff, I got into that in about the 95 probably, and that was something I could do at night, and ski all day, and come home, take a big long nap, eat dinner, and then wake up, drink a Red Bull, and work, kind of routine. So I did that for a long time.
Wow. No, that's cool. Well, that's awesome that you're still skiing that much, man. That is a true accomplishment.
Last year I got like 99 days. This year it was 103. I had to make up for missing the 100 last year. So I try to go up every day, just like the gym membership, just
Sure.
Gets me out of the house. And, I feel like when I'm working, then I'm much happier. So, it's just, I'm glad that we're so close to the mountains here in Salt Lake. That's where I'm located at now. So
yeah, no, we really are fortunate to have stuff this close, and yeah,
I wish we did like cut off people moving into Salt Lake. It's so overpopulated now.
I wasn't going to say it. I feel like I'm like the, around the shop, I'm like the old curmudgeon now that's like back in the day, like back in the day, meaning like 10 years ago, I'm like, you didn't have the traffic and whatever, but I guess it is what it is, Separate episode. We'll tie that into the parking passes.
Yeah. But, I got into telemark. I came out to Alta, and now I'm working there. And, of course, we probably still have one of the larger telemark populations, and I remember sitting in Old Watson's. It's kind of across from where the new one is now. And I remember just seeing this telemark skier coming down the hill, and I'm like, whoa, that is like the smoothest thing I've ever seen, and just the way it flowed. And so I remember that afternoon I came in, I was talking to Lee Cohen, and he said, hey, I've got some telemark boots in your size, probably down at the house. So I went down, looked at those, and sold them to me for $50. It was just some old, just plain leather, a solo boot, of which I later tried strapping Technica cuffs and stuff to it to stiffen them up. But at that point, I borrowed somebody's skis and went and beat myself up for a couple of years for sure.
That's cool. That's cool. Lee Cohen gave you a pair of boots to try out, because that's legendary Alta status right there, just with how many photos that gentleman has shot over the years of so many iconic, magazine covers and whatnot. So that's cool. That's a good little.
Oh yeah, I feel like I came in at a really cool time. It was still snowing a lot at that point, and Alf Engen was still alive, and I got to ski with him, and he had his own little office in ski school. So every afternoon I'd go sit down with him, because he was like in his 80s at that point. And, just to get a chance to talk and ski with someone like that, I think is just an amazing opportunity. So I took any time that I could get. Even talking with his kid after Alf passed, Alan Engen, I would go just want to listen to the stories about all the old timers and stuff and growing up on the hill, because there's such history up there. It's like amazing too,
Yeah, no, it is a really special place for sure. And that's so. So when Lee gave you those pair of boots, when would you say, was that kind of mid '90s then, sort of?
Yeah, it was kind of mid '90s, and it was about the time where the Solo Extreme started coming in, and they were starting to integrate plastic cuffs. But I was just a poor instructor at that point, and so that's when we were strapping cutting old Technicas up, and you'd have this custom pair of boots. I don't even know if the cuffs did that much, but
yeah, no, they looked.
It kind of gave you the mind feel like, oh yeah, I can charge it a little bit harder because I wrapped this plastic cuff around my boot.
Yeah, it was like a hot rod mod. So that's awesome.
I think Telemark has had lots of those types of things over the years, but
oh, for sure. Well, and so did you get connected with the Wasatch Telemark race series? Were you part of that whole thing in that part of the 90s, or was it later on that you kind of connected with everybody on sort of the organization stuff?
Yeah, it was when we started putting on educational clinics. I was remember the Ski Like a Girl clinics that Alta to have. I was the male behind the scenes. We had Lori Staller and a couple others that were kind of the women in the forefront, and I kind of helped arrange instructors and the educational stuff in the background, and then eventually became treasurer and then president of that organization for a while. And that was back when we were starting to do extreme comps as well, and we did the Alta youth program, and so I helped Molly and BJ with that. And then Jeff Wright was also a big person involved in that. Brian May was another one.
Well,
a lot of those were some great things that organization did. I was kind of absorbed into US Telemark eventually.
Yeah, and as you were saying that, I realized B-Mail has been on the podcast, and we talked about some of the early free ride stuff. But I'm glad you sort of touched on the Wasatch Telemark stuff, and there's so much history there. The first time I ever came across it was probably 1995. I think I even have a certificate somewhere. I did a race up at, I believe it was Wolf Mountain at that point, which was Park West before, which then became the Canyons, which then became Vail. So for anybody who cares about what that is, but yeah,
it was kind of the divisional part of US Telemark at that point.
Well, and like you mentioned, Lori Staller, those were the people I remember when, I was a high school kid going to these races, and those were the folks, that were part of that organization doing all, and there was a lot of events. You remember, there was races, and like you said, Ski Like a Girl, there was clinics, and
Jimmy Ludlow was another big name there, that he was on the male racing side. And,
yep.
And then because I was involved with Wasatch Telemark, Jimmy was the president of US Telemark, and I came on as VP there for a while, and then president, and I was probably the longest standing president that they had, and for a while running the whole organization myself, but we've rebuilt it back up. They have a really good team of people there now, and I know it'll continue.
Yeah, well, and I wanted to, that kind of that era, that early, like I mentioned, the racing was happening and all that. And then around probably, I want to say it was 2000, 2001, Jeff Wright comes in the picture. And I talked to B-Mail on the podcast about this, and Jeff Wright was an amazing person. He's no longer with us, but he really was like the visionary behind taking sort of like early free ski comps and bringing it to Telemark, and then sort of making the USTSA, United States Telemark Association series. And so it sounds like you were kind of part of that then too at that point. Is that correct?
Yeah, Jeff and I were working together on that stuff together. And even after he passed, we continued that for a bit. And they still have extreme comps, I believe. I'm not quite sure to the level that they are now, though, but it was a pretty cool time, with those extreme comps. And, that's when you had like BJ and Molly hucking themselves off of cliffs. And, there was a Catherine Krim at that point, and she was there was just some pretty amazing athletes. And back at that point, I ended up judging a lot of those events. And so that was my part of that, and helped get insurance and helped Jeff set it up with the resorts and stuff. But, in the early days, there was some nervous times because we had to get like, $1 million coverage, and you're just worried, whether I was at the event or not, am I going to lose my house? Oh my God, hopefully nothing happens. And so I'd be really thankful when the event was over and nobody was hurt, but it was that kind of grassroots that we were kind of winging it. We had some insurance, but this was about the time where people were starting to sue more, and, you just get worried about that kind of stuff.
Yeah, no, I mean, to just put a finer point on it, like there are no adult, sort of extreme big mountain comps going on here any longer. There's some crossover with the youth stuff. But yeah, I mean, what you guys pulled off in the early days was pretty epic. I mean, when I look back on it, I mean, there was, if I remember right, there was at least one year that there was 5 different stops. I think it was 5.
Yeah, those were the years I was involved with it, when we had the full schedule. We would end up renting houses for the judges, and for some of the top athletes would stay there, and it was a pretty crazy fun bunch, So.
Yeah. No, I mean, and I mean, you guys, I think I came across a video somewhere talking about the budget or lack of budget. I remember hearing a number. I don't even remember what it was, but I remember being like, how did they pull it off with that much money? Like I look back and I have no idea how we pulled it off. And, we'd squeak by with small sponsorship stuff, or, again, I don't know how we made it all happen, really. Yeah, no. And
not money, people that would pay to enter the event, and that would immediately go right to insurance payment, so.
Yeah. What did you feel like when you think back, I mean, what was kind of the vibe? I mean, cause that was kind of when I was sort of starting to come around, and I just remember there was so many good telemark skiers in those events. I mean, what do you remember most about that era?
I feel like the community was really tight in some of those athletes, and that's where it spilled over into like the Alta Youth Club. And that's where, a lot of those athletes got known a little bit more. Like, for instance, BJ and Molly, they made their telemark name through those extreme comps. So I think it gave a lot of athletes that opportunity just to get noticed a little bit more. Sometimes, I mean, you look at the World Cup telemark scene, they're still struggling to kind of get noticed. And, you know, even though that free ski comp didn't last for years and years, you know, just in those years, those athletes got known. It was amazing to me what they would do. I mean, they were launching their carcasses off of stuff that I never would. But I think that the community, I mean, just even at night, they had great times, and not just because they were just partying together, but like I remember one night, so much snow, we had rented an A-frame, and next thing you know, we're hauling people with a Subaru down the street so that they can jump over the A-frame on their teleskis, you know.
Oh man. Yeah, and you brought up, two pretty well-known folks that came out of that era during that time were BJ Brewer and Molly Duma, and they were kind of, I mean, there was sort of a time there where they were like kind of the king and the queen of the big mountain scene. They were both on the top of the podium, and they're awesome people. And you mentioned, you know, Alta Youth Program, I guess there was a couple things. They did the Tele Kids program, with the Boys and Girls Club.
Right. So there were two different things. Yep. Alta Youth was within Alta's own program, and then the Tele Youth was like run by Molly, BJ, and
yep.
B-Mall. And, you know, they arranged, we would get funds so that we could get transportation for the kids up to Alta. I think they also went over to like Park City and kind of did a few different resorts, but it was kids that would probably never even get to go up the canyon. You know, kids that their families probably were worrying about their next meals and stuff. So we took the kids, we fed them for the day, we got them gear, we brought them up to the resort, got them their own like special coach that would work with them each time that they would come up. And, you know, through skiing, as you may know, you teach a lot more than just skiing sometimes, you know, how to overcome, especially on telemark gear, how to overcome balance, or, you know, and just relating those struggles to other things in their life. And that's something I've always tried to do with skiing, you know, is maybe try to teach a bigger picture through that sport. So
yeah, and that program in particular was incredibly inspiring. I was up there for a couple of those, and I remember thinking, like, these kids have never even seen skis, let alone now they're cruising around on them. And I remember thinking, wow, there's so many good athletes here that, like you said, probably never would have had the opportunity if it weren't for that program. And that was just mind-opening to me. Like, wow, there's some really good athletes here that, you know, otherwise may have never even seen a ski lift or, you know, gotten to cruise around and get some coaching. And that really was a special time with that. I'd love to see it come back or something.
Yeah, I was just going to say that if any of those programs could come back, you know, like free ski event, it's going to get tougher and tougher just because of litigation in this country. But, you know, things like the Tele Youth program, the Alta Youth program was more of like a weekend program where you had the same kids all year. And they had that for an alpine program. And then finally, through lots of work, myself and a girl named Anna
Mastalio.
Yeah, we talked them into letting us see if we could get kids to sign up for the season on Tele stuff. And I think we had about 16 kids for a bunch of years doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was a lot of fun.
I didn't realize you were doing that with Anna. She was awesome too. I remember that's cool that you guys were the ones that kind of got that rolling. And that's when there was also a youth program on the canyons. Park City Tele Tribe is what it was called. Kind of a similar deal.
Yeah. They would come over and they would visit and ski with our groups over there, and that would always be a good time too.
Yeah. Those youth programs, man. If that's you know, everyone always talks about it. You know, we gotta drive the future. We gotta drive the future. I mean, that's what we need is more of that stuff. You know, more organizations that can start that kind of thing and are willing to put the effort in because it's tough, as you know. I mean, what do you think logistically, what was the hardest part about starting a youth program like that for you? I mean, when you think back, I mean, what worked and what didn't?
I think the hardest part was getting gear, especially at that time. You could answer that question easier if it would be easier today to get gear for kids, but there was a guy named Telly Bob or something like
Telly
that.
Ned Ryerson.
Telly Ned, that's it. Yeah, I don't know why I'm thinking Bob's Burgers.
There's probably a Telly Bob out there somewhere.
Isn't there a ski called the Telly Bob?
Oh, there was a Scotty Bob. That's what
Scotty Bob. That's right. So I'm mixing worlds now. But Telly Ned, yeah, I think we connected with him or some of his connections to try to get some youth gear. But that was the problem, was getting small enough boots for them.
Yeah. Well, and
you could mount up any ski ultimately.
Well, and those boots went to a size 19, but and you can get a 21, size Mondo 21, but sometimes the flexes, the thing with the kids' boots that they were making back then, the Teledactyls and the G-Rex, was the plastic's so soft, and that when you got little kids that don't weigh a whole lot, you got to have that soft plastic. So yeah, for sure, it almost needs to not have any resistance for them. Yeah. So gear, and I don't think a lot's changed. I mean, frankly, there's not even. They discontinued finally. Well, I shouldn't say finally. I didn't want them to discontinue it, but the kids' boots were discontinued. So whatever you can scrounge up on the internet is about the maximum that is out there. There are no more new plastic kids' boots. But was Alta, back then? Did you feel like it was pretty receptive you were in the ski school already, I think, still at the time, right? So was there sort of
we had to talk everybody into every step of the way. There was always politics around it, but luckily, a lot of the management of Alta still teleskied. There was a lot of staff that teleskied, so eventually, like, a guy named Greg Underwood and myself kind of put together the original Telly lessons, like group lessons once a week up there, and we'd have to do all our own advertising, put little advertising tents on the dining tables to get people interested. I'd be trying to talk clients into doing it, trying to convince them, you'll be a better alpine skier if you just tellied with me a couple days. So I would talk people into it, and then by getting involved with all these different organizations was also good for Alta to see that, I wasn't just trying to do it to create a program up at Alta, that, we had some good interest in the educational part behind it. So eventually we got, group lessons. They still do them. But I think some of it died off after some of us left Alta. Yeah,
I don't know if they do the group lessons anymore.
It might be privates only.
Yeah, I think, and that, honestly, I'm glad you brought that up, because honestly, that's been, I like that you came from sort of the educational side of it, because that's where I see a huge gap, since I remember when I first started the shop, we didn't have rentals right off the bat. And I remember talking to some ski school people at a couple of the resorts on this side, and sort of was like, hey, I know you don't have rentals. I've got the rentals covered finally. And I said, do you have group lessons? And then everyone was like, no, we don't have, nobody wants to do it. And it used to be nobody wants to do it because they can't get the gear. And so I figured, oh, well, now I've got the gear. Can you do group lessons? And everyone's like, no, it's half day privates. And I'm like, ah. So yeah. It's tricky.
We'd have them on Mondays and Wednesdays, or it was twice a week. In the beginning, only one person would show up, and so as an instructor, you took a little bit of a loss, but you knew you had to kind of put in your dues. And eventually, I remember we'd have 10 people showing up, and it was at the time when we got Alta Sports to have some tele rentals, which also helped that they were right there. And then you got a lot of people that were like kind of backcountry skiers that wanted to learn how to telly turn a little bit better. And I've always been of the school of thought, like if I was on telly gear, I tellied. If I was on alpine gear, I paralleled. You know, so I don't really often parallel on telly stuff, and
you definitely don't telly on alpine stuff. Definitely doesn't go that way.
Unless I'm exhausted and it's the only way out of the woods. You know?
I'm glad you hit on that, brother, because I feel like that is sort of, unfortunately, sort of this bygone era where like group lessons, I feel like they're, you might start out one person, two people, but I feel like if there was some consistency there, as long as people have access to the equipment for a rental, there's a huge opportunity for group lessons, and that educational component's such a missing piece I see in the world right now. Is, it's just, people just need the opportunity. They need someone to show them what's up,
otherwise it seems scary. And, I did beat myself up. I didn't have anybody teaching me in the beginning. I remember I'd come in and some old timer would be like, next time, like, try this. And I'd be like, all right. And go out, buy Telemark tips book just so I could try to relate my alpine skiing to it,
Yep.
And so I don't think it's ever really been that easy to get instruction about telly. I read some of the forums and I'm like, oh, don't try that.
It's like any sort of guidance is good. My favorite, when you'll catch someone on the hill trying to teach themselves, and God bless them. I'm like, I've been there and I love it, but if they don't have anybody showing them, I always love when they put the wrong lead leg forward, like an alpine turn, and drop the wrong knee. So basically, like, it's like the uphill skis extended instead of the downhill.
They probably have their skis on the wrong feet. I don't know how many times I saw that in lift line, and you don't want to embarrass them. You'll be like, hey, you got your skis on the wrong feet. Oh, I've been wondering why it hasn't been feeling that good today.
I forgot about you don't see that as often now with like a lot of NTN stuff out there, but yeah, when cable bindings were right and left foot and people didn't know how to identify, you'd always know you'd be behind them in the lift line and sort of see like their boot all kind of cockeyed to one side, and you're like, oh, do I say something to him? Or
that was like the time I had a guy come to a lesson with stretch pants on backwards, and the racing pants were behind his knee now, and I'm like, you might want to just go in and like turn your pants around and come back like the lesson, and you'll be a lot more successful.
Are you talking about like the old? They were kind of like stretchy, but then they had like the pads on the knee to the shin.
Yeah.
Oh no way! He had them on backwards, so the hard part was behind the knee.
Yeah, and so he couldn't even like bend his leg or anything. I'm just like, oh, dude.
I forgot about those. Yeah, there was like that period in the 90s where like people wore those just like because. It wasn't like they were racing or anything. They just like had them,
Dude, that was part of our ski school uniform when I first got there. Was stretch. We had these like light blue stretch pants that were terrible. They'd charge you like $80 for them, and like maybe later when they had your size of the other type of pant, you could get it or whatever.
Shout out to stretch pants from the 90s. I don't know, we might have to bring those back.
Up at Alta, sometimes you'd think that was the norm still, but we're a little old school up there still. But that was part of the ski school uniform of all things. But
that's
if you look back at some of the uniforms, they do look pretty silly through the late 80s and 90s,
Yeah. Well, so are you still teaching skiing every once in a while, or are you just rolling? Did you kind of leave that behind at some point and just go full time with the web development stuff?
Yeah, I've gone more full time with the web stuff, but still skiing every day, of course. So I still kind of keep that in, and I still have some clients that come out and want to ski with me as friends, and so I get that a couple times a year. I don't miss the small paychecks, and unfortunately, we do have to pay bills. But I'm glad that I still kept skiing as like a big part of my life. But I'm just not working at a ski school. No.
Yeah. Do it while you're young, kids.
After I left Alta, I went up to Powder Mountain for a little while, and I was like their tele guy on call for their snowcats.
Oh,
and
sick.
So that was pretty fun. I did that for about 5 years, and the ski school director was a good friend of mine, so he pretty much totally set me up. Here's a season pass, and if we need a tele guide, I'm going to call you.
I love that.
And so I'd go up a few times each winter and do that and go up and help with their training and stuff. And so I still pay my professional ski instructor dues and all that stuff so that if I ever did want to go back. But I think I'm kind of happy with just skiing for myself right now too.
Yeah, no, I get that. Well, I wanted to hit on, you'd mentioned you were president at USTSA, US Telemark Ski Association. How did that all come about, and when was that? Because that's a pretty significant role to take on, my friend. So I'm just kind of
So Jimmy Ludlow was the president, and I think whoever was VP at that point had left, and I had done a lot with Wasatch Telemark, and was good friends with Jimmy, and he's like, I'm going to recommend you to be VP if you want to do that. And so I started that in 1999, and I was VP for 2 years, and then Jimmy left, and I became president in 2001 till 2009. And for a while there, Catherine Krim was the VP. She's up in Washington now. She was another one of those big tele free skier event ladies. And she drifted off the map a little bit when she moved up north. And I ended up running the organization by myself for a while. We still had like a very limited board of directors. And eventually we built that all back up, and now it's like the only involvement I have now is I still do their website, help them with that kind of stuff, but they've built up a pretty good organization. It was a little sketchy there for a couple of years, but I'm glad we got it back on track. And, they're still working on telemark for the Olympics, but it's kind of crazy. Like you'll see shovel racing or something like that, but not telemark stuff. It's like, are you kidding me? Like,
what's your? I've touched on this topic a couple times in the podcast. Not a lot. I've had some racers on, and I had one current World Cup racer, and some other folks. But what's your take, having gone through that? Because and now that you're giving me the dates, like I raced from like 2000 to 2002. So it's kind of at that time where, that you had the racing, and then you had the free ski stuff kind of happening. But even back then, the whole push was to get telemark in the Olympics. And I'm always kind of curious, like, I don't know, like what, is that is it a good thing or a bad thing? And will it ever happen, I guess?
Tough to tell if it's ever going to happen. And I think it's more of a political thing. But we have everything in place. And so I've just always been astounded that, we never got it to go through. And, we're not the only country pushing for this, We've got the guys over in Norway. We got people from all over the world, Canada team. So it's not just a U.S. thing. I think that would be an amazing thing to have that go to the Olympics. Maybe some of the events aren't as exciting. Maybe we should bring extreme comps. I don't know. That was the big seller. But you would think that World Cup teleskiing, I've seen a lot of it, and it's fun to watch too.
Yeah.
It's different because it's not just telemark skiing; it's Nordic skiing. You get some skating aspects in there with full-on gear, and It's almost like a mix between, World Cup racing and free ski events, because they've got the skate moves in between,
Yeah, and they've got the dual sprint classic now, so it's kind of that head-to-head into the Rapaloosa, which is the big bank turn, if somebody hasn't seen that. And I mean, it is cool. I mean, it's obviously at a FIS level, World Cup level. And so, through the internet, you can obviously stream some of these races now, which is really cool. I mean, the athleticism's there, 100%. I mean, there's incredibly high-level athletes getting after it, training. Like you said, it's not just a U.S. thing. It's like, there's like, you mentioned some of the European countries. I mean, there's people training legit full-time year-round, and it's at an extremely high level. And yeah, I don't know. Yeah,
they've got skate skiing and Nordic skiing in the Olympics. And so it's like, seems like an obvious next step. To me, anyway. But.
Yeah, and I do think it would definitely give the turn in the sport more exposure. But I always wonder, I'm like, is that what's going to get more people? It's going to get more eyeballs on it. Yes, like I don't think anybody can. Although less people are watching the Olympics than ever before, I think, but I still think you're going to get a lot of people seeing it, not knowing what it is, and wondering how to get into it. So I see that aspect of it, even if it's watching racing and then you're like, oh, I'll go try that at my local hill, just like from a free ski aspect. But
I think that's just part of the ingredients to get the exposure.
Yeah,
is you still have like that, the racing scene. People can see that on TV, just like I can watch alpine racing. Like that would be unattainable to most, but you get a lot of people that still kind of interests them, that gets them to want to go out. But I think this is the reason I got into the educational side, is because I've always thought that was the true way, was to teach people and give them opportunity to get gear and opportunity to try the sport out. And like, I converted a lot of people to telemark, and that's how I got to telly a lot myself when I was up at Alta. It's because like half of my clients were telly skiers by the end, so I get like 50-50.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. I think if you look at it like an ingredient and not, it's like an ingredient of the overall formula to help propagate the sport and help people see the turn and get into it. That makes sense to me. And I mean, we kind of talked about those various ingredients, it's like the visual aspect, even how you got into it, you see this telly skier, and, I even think that's one of the most important ingredients, is seeing other telemark skiers out there, and then access to gear, maybe access to instruction, educational side, and then obviously like, the bigger platform stuff like World Cup racing, Olympics, big mountain comp, video parts, or whatever may get that visual component to inspire people, like, oh wow, here's the possibility at a high athletic level, and then again, back to education and access to gear. Seems like that's and like you said, you were successful in getting a lot of people to try it just because you were passionate about it.
Yeah, it was just, once you do a telly turn once, and it just feels so right. No matter how you make your telly turn, we all know, if you've tellied, like, you felt something, and it was just this amazing flowing feeling, whether it's for minutes or seconds. That's what keeps us going for it. And I just loved the fluidity of the sport, and it just taught me better balance. It made my alpine skiing better, and so those were the kinds of things I tried to show people. I remember skiing with alpine groups and just struggling to keep up until now my speed is finally up to keeping up with alpine skiers. And, these are guys who are just straight running everything. But that was always like one of my goals, keep up with everybody, with my groups, whether I'm on this gear or that gear, and to show them at that point that, it's something that's fun to do. And I even did that with I'd show up to Kristen Ulmer's ski camps. I would be a guest coach for that. And I'd show up on my tele gear. And people would be like, wow, I can't believe you're going everywhere we are. I'm like, yeah, and it's a lot more comfortable, a lot easier to get around, and a lot easier to listen to Kristen talking all day. And I do love you, Kristen. So if you're listening to this,
well, it's cool. Yeah, I think, you're one of those guys that's really gone the gamut of instruction and organization, and I mean, you've done a lot of stuff, and really helped with the foundation of stuff, here and with the USTSA stuff, man. So thanks for all you've done doing that. I sometimes think that stuff goes unappreciated. Not that you did it for everybody to give you a big pat on the back, but I do think there's a lot of those foundational people along the way that, and that's why I wanted to get you on the podcast. It was just an opportunity to kind of chop it up and talk about some of this stuff, because, time goes by and, sometimes people don't see the foundation bricks anymore. They're kind of covered with snow or dirt or however you want to look at it, so.
I've always kind of been happy to be kind of the guy behind the scenes, trying to help other people's visions of like the tele youth programs and things like that. And so I'm thankful that I was in a position to be able to help all of those different things through the years. And I think I'm the kind of with the Women's Day clinics, you never heard about a male running the stuff, but I was the third person that was the male, but thank goodness I was there. It was just such a fun opportunity. There's nothing wrong with hanging out with 100 tele women for the day either. So.
You had a good gig.
It wasn't bad at all. And so I'll always look back really fondly of all my teaching experience, and and again, all that stuff overplays into anything in my life, whether it's web design or search engine optimization or working with others. It's all the same stuff, really. But
yeah, well, I love that, man. Well, I really appreciate you coming on the podcast, bro, and just it's been good to catch up and just kind of hear some of the history and hear your experiences in telemark, and I really appreciate you taking the time to share all that with me.
No, I'm glad you wanted to talk with me, and it's also a good opportunity just to chat with you for a little bit.
I know it's sometimes I got to get on a podcast to block out an hour of my time, so it's good. I appreciate it.
I know we text and message a lot, but,
I know.
It's good to actually hear your voice.
Yeah, so. It's good to hear yours too.
I think I have some more stuff in the shop too, so some old US Telemark garb and stuff that maybe you'd be interested in. So
always.
Once we get back on track for winter, I'll bring you some more Nordic stuff down.
Oh, I love that, man. I can't wait. The history is growing here of collectibles, so I'm game anytime.
I even have some old extreme comp t-shirts and stuff.
Oh, I'll
bring you some down.
Please do, because I just folded a bunch that I've got, and I'm trying to find a way to display them so that people can check them out.
Yeah, I have actually a couple cases of them, so
I'll
bring some. Yeah. Let's get them on people, anyways.
Yeah, I would love that. That's awesome. All right, brother. Well, I'll look for you in the fall when the snow starts falling. Then, and until then, have a good one.
You too, Josh. Thanks for talking with me.
Thanks, brother. Great to catch up with Christopher. Awesome dude, and love digging into a little bit of my local telemark history with some of these Wasatch Telemark folks, early USTSA, and kind of the folks around here that were involved with that. So many great events have come, gone. I always try to use that as sort of an inspiration when I look back on some of this stuff, and I'm like, we've had great moments in telemark over the decades. And since it kind of came back in the late 70s, mid 70s, and all the way to today, And just having these conversations just always gets me fired up, and knowing how many people have really put effort into putting women's clinics together, or free ski events, or races, or gatherings, or what have you. So big shout out to Christopher for coming on the podcast and sharing his story, and good to catch up with him. So before you guys take off today, be sure to sign up for our mailing list. Link is provided in the show notes. Always love catching up with our friends on our weekly email from Free Heel Life, so you know what's going on with all of our new products, new merchandise, protector skis, and all of the news as we start ramping up towards the next Telemark ski season here in the Northern Hemisphere, which is not too far away. It's going to start cooling off here in a couple months. As always, you can find me on the social medias if you like to check that out or connect with me there, at Josh Nomadson. And you can find everybody in the shop, freehilllife.com, at freehilllife on the socials. You can find all of our telemarkskier.com content there, at teleskier.mag on the socials. Hit me up direct, podcast at freehilllife.com. And I hope and wish a wonderful week to all of you. And I'll be back next week. So until then, make sure you spread Telemark. Always. See you later.